Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our class again. So we're doing, class on like most frequently asked questions. What is Kansi and how we can use it and where we can get it. We get a lot of questions about Kansui, so we decided to do it today. And my name is Akira, and this is me, my colleague. So we're talking about Kansui, which is like vital ingredient to ramen noodles. And so I'm going to talk about Kansui, what it is, and what types of Kansui that are out there, and then how we can use it to have like certain effects on noodle texture and then other elements of noodles. So let's get started in the lecture first, and then maybe we're just going to make some noodles using Kansui uh, later. So yeah, Kansui is I don't I don't know even like I don't even know like if I should like call it Kansui because it's a Japanese word, and it's probably it's not probably, but it comes from originally come from China. So I wrote that in kanji characters like on the left corner on the whiteboard. And so Kansui is like, what is Kansui, right? Like we're going to talk about what is Kansui, and then why do we add Kansui to our noodles, to ramen noodles, and what types of Kansui out there? Like there's so many of them, and it's important for us to talk about how do we measure Kansui, right? When it comes to making ramen noodles. So let's see, like, so Kansui is well, actually accidentally found in, well, like hundreds of years ago, right? Like in China, and like kind of China, like, but that's like in the region, like closer to Mongolia, as like the northern part. And there used to be like, there's said to be like called this lake named Khan Lake, right? That's a kind of salt lake, so that water is salty, and it was there, right? So like they discovered this water that if they like knead this water into the noodle, I mean the wheat flour, they could get this certain texture that as we know, I mean we know as ramen noodles, like Chinese style noodles. So because they're like, the noodle making techniques using kansi was developed, and then, well, basically spread along with a variety of noodles made with kansi to, different places like, across the China, and eventually it found its way onto Japan and became ramen noodles. So some famous ramen, I mean noodles originally developed using kansi are, the famous handmade noodles like lentil, like ramen. We actually did this a noodle in a previous class. So if you are interested in this type of noodle, like please check out our previous class on YouTube channel. And Hong Kong wonton noodle, like, these are really famous and popular noodles. They're popular in like Hong Kong, Macau, using kansi and like duck eggs, right? Yeah, that's famous, right? And then some of them like wonton skins are made, use kansi as well. And so kansi is basically, what it is like. We use this kansi to, well, adjust the balance, right? Adjust the balance of, hardness, like, making it softer, like harder, and it adds this, well, the sort of like a smell, a flavor, and it also has this a color to it, a little bit of color, like as we know, like we know that like Chinese style noodles, some types of Chinese style noodles and the ramen noodles are kind of pale yellow to like certain color, so that adds color as well. Um, and but why do we add a council? Like, I kind of talked about it already a little bit. So we have this chart that we use like over time and in previous classes. And so basically describes noodle texture, different types of noodle texture. And um, so x-axis is just hydration, towards the right, like higher the hydration, like softer, left, lower, make it harder, right? And then vertical line that, well, represents the protein of the flour. up, harder, down, softer. And so the we said that like so the harder noodle texture tends to be thinner, right? The thinner because thin noodle because like physically it's not like it doesn't have the bite like if it's soft, right? So like we want to make it harder naturally. And then for thicker noodles, because it's got a lot of bite to it like already, so we want to make it softer to have the balance of a hardness. And so that's what this chart is about. And to make it hard, but basically, so the Kansui is combination potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate, and I'm going to explain them later. But potassium carbonate basically, pretty simply makes it harder. Sodium carbonate makes it softer. So um, the harder, if you want to make it harder, right, then your noodles texture harder, then you want to add more of potassium carbonate, make it softer, put more of the sodium carbonate. So that's basically what this chart kind of tries to describe. Um, so texture, and then it also controls the viscoelasticity. Viscoelasticity, so like it's viscous at the same time elastic. So this, what tuning the bounciness of it, it controls this. Like depending on what type of currency you use, you can improve the viscoelasticity of your noodles. So it's the balance between hard, soft, and then viscoelastic. And color, so wheat flour contains these pigments, flavonoid pigments, and when we add calcium, which is alkaline, that acts on this pigment to make it sort of like pale yellow or like sometimes like greenish yellow. So that's the color. So depending on the type of calcium you use, the color will bit different. And so the flavor and smell. Yeah, it's like so. Some people actually don't really like the smell. Like, kind of has this strong smell of. It's kind of hard to describe, but like kind of bitter. Like, um, so yeah, it's like so. Depending on the type of currency you use, the smell, right? Smell like of the noodles that you make with that currency, like would be like really strong. So that's another characteristics of Kansui, and um, kind of have this like preservative characteristics to it. And so, well, Kansui, like adding Kansui makes the noodles alkaline. So that's pH level, right? And it's like so if we so if like um, when we make like we have Kansui and they like make it alkaline, then we can make it last longer, like keep longer because like the pH level that where like germs like grow most would be like there's neutral. Um, and then the opposite of alkaline is like of course acid, right? Acid. So the good example like vinegar, right? Vinegar, when you marinate some like vegetables and stuff like that in the vinegar, they last longer, right? That's the wisdom that like like ancient people had like kind of invented, like found, discovered, right? So that's why it has this kind of preservative characteristics to it too. So if you add Kansui to a certain level to your noodles, then the noodles are good for if they're refrigerated. They're good for 1 week to like 2 weeks. So, and yeah, I wrote like noodle retention during cooking. So that also has to do with pH level. And then so I wrote this for this graph. That this graph is actually I took out from our textbook for the ramen noodle making textbook. And so this is a graph like we tested over and over to find out. So this is the like vertical line represents the, like how much noodles we lose during cooking, during boiling. Because like if you boil noodles, right? Like we're like close to like 100 degrees Celsius, the noodles actually melt by dissolved into the cooking water over time, like if you cook them, right? And and then this x-axis is the pH level. So the 7 being neutral, towards like less than 7, like that's acid. Um, Bigger than alkaline, that's well bigger than like 7, like that's alkaline. And so this is a graph, right? So like if the cooking water, right, cooking water is like really strongly acid, then look at this, like we lose almost like about like more than half of noodles we're cooking, right? And if you cook them at neutral level, we lose like about like 30%, something like that, right? And then so we found out that like if we control the pH level, like around like 5.5 to 6, like that, like light acid, then we lose just a little bit of noodles like on the cooking, right? About 10%. And if we make this cooking water like to like light alkaline, maybe like 9, 10, we lose about like maybe 15%, 20%. So that's what we found out. Like it's really important because the yield of cooked noodles, right? Like, well, you put a lot of effort, right? Worked hard like to make your noodles, and then like when you serving, cooking and serving them to your customers, and then like you lose this much of noodles in the cooking process. So that's really important. Like, and then so having alkaline, I mean having like Kansui in your noodles um, will make the cooking water, which was neutral first, to make it light alkaline, right? So um, that having Kansui, which actually dissolve in the cooking water, 84.5, like 90% of like actually will get to dissolve in the cooking water, making the water alkaline or neutral. Then it protects the, it retains a lot of noodles actually from melting into cooking. Then same thing with well, for example, udon noodles, right? Um, we add like a bit of vinegar to making the cooking water a light acid from neutral. So, it helps retain a lot of noodles from cooking, I mean, melting the cooking water. So these are the kind of characteristics, like benefits of using Kansui. And, there are many types of Kansui out there. And, but basically the major ones that we use, right, are these like um, potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate, and all these like four types like that we have like actually in our textbook are um, like contains a phosphate, and then well, this is so this, like if we use cans, like we contain or consume like a lot of phosphate, right? And then like, well, they said to be, well, they say that like we would like some people like actually well develop like some osteoporosis, or like well, because it takes well like well well, consuming this substance, right, like well, takes up a lot of minerals, like good minerals, like from our body. So we do not recommend, like, so if you choosing which currency to use, right? So we recommend that you avoid choosing, the ones that contain phosphate. Okay, and so, but basically, so it controls hardness, right? Hardness, viscoelasticity, and the color and smell. And then I wrote like binding. Binding means like so how like yeah, it's like how well, like all these ingredients, right? Like flour and everything, like water, kind of bind together. Like how much it helps, how much constantly helps to bind all these ingredients together. So these are the kind of different characteristics of um, different types of currency. And then there's many other types of currency out there. And then so it's yeah. And then sodium carbonate So we basically use the one that, well, that's like, potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate blended to make up the Kansui. And so this is a like actual table, like, we took out from the our Noodle textbook. But like, so basically potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate, we blend them at different ratios, depending on what type of noodles we're making. And so like, hard noodles, like, so I kind of kind of explain like in this chart, that we have up there. So thin noodle, hard noodle, like we usually want to make it harder. So we increase the amount of potassium carbonate, which makes the noodle texture harder. And the sodium carbonate, like, pretty much does the exact opposite, but like it makes the noodles soft and moist as well. And it actually, well, makes the kind of binding, like when it comes to binding like different ingredients right together, it even works, for like low hydration ratio noodles. Like for example, like tsukeme, I mean tonkotsu noodles, Hakata style tonkotsu noodles. So if you're making tonkotsu noodles, like, that's hard and dry, and low in hydration, you may want to use, well, sodium carbonate instead of this. So like, well, so there's no one formula for, like certain types of noodles, because there are many variations even in the same, well, tonkotsu noodles and like Hakata style noodles. So it kind of really depends on like what kind of final texture you want to have in your noodles. So you can have tonkotsu noodles, hard noodles that use, for example, like this type, like 90% sodium carbonate, 10% potassium carbonate. So it really kind of depends, and the final texture you want to have. And so you have like 60%, 40%. Um, and we have like, yeah, 0% and 100%. Like this is, yeah, so we have like really different types of Kansui. And it's very interesting. And to try out actually like using exactly the same wheat flour, right? And but like kind of like, well, you know, blending like different types of currency at different ratios. And so you could have like maybe like, well, for example, like 80% potassium carbonate and 10% sodium carbonate, and then 5% of something else, or some other currency, some other type of currency, and then 3% of some other type of currency and stuff like that. So like it's kind of interesting to kind of play around with like different types of currency and different ratios, to have different textures. Okay, so and so yeah, but like the basic rule is like thinner, harder, right? And so like increase potassium carbonate, decrease sodium carbonate, and the thicker, right? And like you want to make it softer, so you want to increase the sodium carbonate. So that's the kind of basic rule, but like it really kind of depends on what kind of final texture you have in noodles. So okay, so how do we measure, right? How do we measure cancer, right? There are many, there are basically three ways to do it. Like just like basically we measure by weight, right? So you have like scale and yeah, so like most of the cancer like they're available in Japan, or actually manufactured like through like chemical synthesis. So these are all like powder. But like of course like there are other types of cancer like that are like that coming like liquid form. Then in that case, like we may want to do use this Bowman scale, or like refractometer, but like usually we do by weight. Um, so we just measure calcium powder, and then it's like, and then we measure the water, right? And then so we know like how many percentage of that currency that we're gonna have, like solution we're gonna have. So if you wanna do, okay, so we have like 10 liter, 10 kilograms water, And then if you want to do like 1% Kansui solution, right? So like, we just weigh the 100 grams of Kansui, right? So that's one way. And the refractometer, so, if you're not sure how many, well, how many percentage like the Kansui the solution has, so you can use this refractometer. So like it's very convenient. You just take the sample on this glass, right? And then you just look through it, and then you just get the number, how many degrees of it. I mean, what's the density of the solution is, and yeah, and then like kind of old, like well, kind of older method, atomic scale, like that's yeah, it's well, it has this kind of like kind of glass tube with a sort of like thermometer, like kind of old style thermometer in it, and then you just kind of try to measure the relative density of the solution, right? But like it's not accurate. Like it maybe it's accurate like when the temperature is the same, like or temperature solution temperature is the same, but like if it's like the temperatures are higher, like lower, then the like is the result, right? Like varies. So um, it's kind of hard to use. So if you have access to like refractometer, that's better. And you can always of course weigh everything by weight, measure everything by weight. So that's more accurate. And another thing, like I want to point out, like when we are measuring or like we are making noodles using Kansui, is that like solubility. With solubility of potassium carbonate, sodium carbonate is different, and then sodium carbonate is very hard to dissolve in the water. And see, this is the water temperature. Exactly, this is the percentage of the solubility, right? So and then sodium potassium carbonate, it's like 1.1 kilogram potassium carbonate melts, right, in the water that's 10 degrees Celsius, like 1 liter water. But the sodium carbonate only melts like and dissolve like only just 0.1 kilograms. So it's hard to dissolve. So and then when you are tries like dissolve and make dissolve like all the Kansui in the water and then make solution. You have to make sure because when Kansui melts, right, kind of generates some heat, so it tends like solidify at the bottom. So we want to or stir it well, and then make sure that like all the remaining is like all the will get dissolved. And so you have to like kind of look at like a couple of times to make sure like it's all gone, right? So but like so constantly, and if you're kind of starting up like of your like noodle production and right, want to test, for example, your like flour that you have like locally available to make your ramen noodles. But the Kansui, like you don't you the cans like if you want to buy Kansui and it like comes in like 20-kilo bag or something like 12-kilo bag, like that you have to, well, I don't know, you have maybe like I don't know 10,000 servings to use it up. So if you don't have access to Kansui sample, then some of the like substitutes that you may want to try is like was the most popular one, like most well-known one, is like baking soda. And and if you microwave it, or like if you just kind of dry stuff right, and then yeah, it's well the result you get out of it like is better. Um, and then, well, if you know like some, I guess like some Chinese grocery store, the chances are they carry this light water, like kind of liquid version of Kansui. And then, well, some regions like Okinawa, actually, Okinawa prefecture, like in Japan, they have this. They used to actually make some type of Kansui, like using this banyan tree charcoal. Then they soak them like in the water, and then they overnight, and then they use that water, right? That kind of ash water to make noodles with it. So there are some substitutes that you may want to use. So um, yeah, so this is Kansui, and I hope I've answered your all your concerns, questions. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to yes, send us in the comments, and then send us in email. And we have actually article talking about Kansui and different types of ingredients that we use for ramen noodles on our website. And yeah, we're gonna update that pretty soon. But like, if you, if you wanna know more about like other types of ingredients for ramen noodles, please check out our blog on our website. Like that's called like Noodle Master Lab. So okay, so let's see what we have for noodle making that we're gonna do today. And so so these are the ingredients that we have, right? And then um, usually, so this is Kansui, right? This is Kansui, and as you can see, like this is fine powder, like we sometimes call it K powder. Um, yeah, so like it's chemical, I mean, it's like manufactured mass quantity, like through yeah, chemical synthesis. So like it's it comes in powder form in Japan, and this is salt. This is salt, like it's different, right? Like it looks different too. And so the flour and ramen flour and it's water, just plain water. So so we are gonna make some ramen noodles in this machine, and in this machine, like this called like Michelin one machine, and this particular model is actually for EU countries where like they require all the goods going there to have CE mark, and so this machine is CE certified, and so now she's dissolving all the first, like she put the salt in it, right? Salt in it, like so make sure it's all gone, right? Before you add calcium in it, and otherwise, like it gets harder to get all the calcium out while dissolving in the water. So we have to like kind of store it, like to make sure, like so kind of it's becoming like just be like cloudy a little bit, and because of the all the like bubble, like small bubbles, like like the soaring freeze. But like once once it's clear, right, then all the calcium powder is it melted in it. So after that, like we added, right, we added the water to the flour, and so like flour is like getting um, a bit of water, like liquid, this liquid, like little by little, right? And so, so this is the dough the Megami made like in advance, because like she put Kansui in it, and the amount of Kansui she had is just 1%, 1% of the weight of the flour, total weight of flour, total solid weight. So just 1%, right? So if you're making, for example, like 4 kilograms of, if you're doing like 4 kilograms of like solid ingredients, then you're just adding like 40 grams, right? And then you can see that color, right? You can see the color, and then remember the color of the flour. right? You saw like it was like really white, right? It was white, only white, but like after you add Kansui, right? Like you see the colors, yeah, it's like kind of pale yellow right now. And yeah, I wish you guys would be able to like kind of smell this. Well, well, yeah, I wish I could call it like flavor. Yeah, yeah, it's got this kind of, kind of singing smell, and um, so the color and the smell flavor is already there. So yeah, and then so first like we need to make a rough sheet of dough in this machine first, like to yeah, to make rough sheet of dough, right? And then in this process, so it was like just crumbled with dough, right? And then like we are making rough sheet of dough through set of rollers, and then in this process, like we are actually well developing the gluten um, structure inside the the dough, and so Kansui is it's actually helping develop the gluten structure in there. And so, the word, the viscoelastic, right? Viscoelastic, like it's viscous at the same time it's elastic. Um, so the council is like kind of working hard to well, develop that texture. Like they got this good texture in this dough. And that there are a lot of different types of council, and well, for those of you like for of course, like overseas and yeah, there are many types in Japan, available in Japan, but like when you go to, well, for example, like Europe or like United States or Canada, North America, or some other places, like the types of currency that are commercially available, like unlimited, limited. So there's just probably few, probably maybe like up to like three or four types to choose from. So you just have like kind of well probably like test out like well if you're serious then like the supplier may have like some sample that like in small quantity, so you might want to get them like try and like well the brochure and the catalogs like kind of describe the effects the and a particular country would have like in the noodles, but it's kind of hard to imagine like just by reading that description. So well, if you're serious, like you definitely should just try like by actually making noodles with it, and other yeah other way that you maybe like find like certain types of well the like food additives that you maybe like use as constantly is that like there are certain types like that are actually um, approved by the hmm? EU countries and EU and recognized as well safe food safe additives by FDA, like United States. So like so those types of food additives are used for like certain purposes, like texturizing, like and stabilizing and of like um, kind of dough condition and other purposes. So um, yeah, it's good to ask like all these suppliers that carry like all these food additives to find out what's available, right? What's available out there, and then what what you be like kind of make with these types of currency. I mean types of yeah. Well, I don't want to say like substances, but like yeah, all these food additives. So now it's we're doing like this process I call like combining process. So we're basically making still like in the process of like developing gluten and basically like combining two separate sheets of dough that we made, right? So basically compounding them through set of rollers. And then the color, right? Color, when it comes to color, and then the noodle texture, right? And depending on currency, the type of currency you use, and um, you know, that well when you cook them, right? Like when you look at it, like it's like uncooked noodles or like uncooked dough, then it's hard to like tell the difference, right? But like when you can tell the difference, but like when you cook them actually, when you boil them, and the noodles got like gelatinized and like kind of translucent, and then you can see the difference like more clearly. And so some type of currency that we use the I was like make the noodle texture like more um, like the surface like sleeker, and then um, makes it like chewier and softer, and some like made on harder, right? Harder, but like like more elastic. So it kind of really depends on the kind of final texture you were looking for in noodles. So doing that, then you the blending that we talked about, right? You might want to do that, and then the type of wheat flour, right? Type of wheat flour, like type of like grains that you're using. Depending on that as well, like you want to choose the so it's the balance, right? It's the balance between the hardness, the viscoelasticity, and then so the flavor and color, right? So all of that like kind of depend on the final texture. Final texture means after, so like when you bite into noodles, like the cooked noodles, like cooked noodle. So unless you cook them and then bite them, right? Then you don't know the kind of texture you're getting from your recipe. So you have to try them to understand, and then adjust your recipe. So so every time you make noodles, and then you have to try them. And so after combining process, we'll just have to like thin it to the final thickness, and then from this point on, we want to dust on the dough so that it won't stick together. Okay, so we thin it, and so we're going to do another round of thinning, and it was so that roller gap. that the dough is like going through right now is like actually 1.5 millimeter, 1.5 millimeter, and it's yeah, it's pretty thin. Um, for Yeah, it's like kind of medium size for ramen noodles, and but the actual thickness is always bigger than the roller gap we set. So because it's wheat flour, and then the kansui, and then like it has this like viscoelastic viscoelasticity, which will cause the dough to like bounce back. So um, yeah, the thickness, actual thickness, is always bigger than the roller gap we set. So it's a good idea to measure the actual thickness. Like even though you set the roller gap to 1.5 millimeter, then okay, so this 1.5 millimeter, right? But it's not. So you have to measure the actual thickness, like before, especially before you cut it, right? So you see the difference, right? So that was 1.5, but like it's now 2.1-ish, yeah, 2 millimeter. And so this is different than 0.5 millimeter. So like the dough bounces back by 0.5 millimeter. So that's how elastic, how like viscoelastic it is. And so we're gonna cut it, and like we use this kind of cutter, like we call it a slider cutter. So um, each group is like 2.0 millimeter in width. Yes. So yeah, thank you for asking, because like I was gonna say that like at the end of today's class, but like yeah, we do have like suppliers. We know suppliers like of Kansui, and then like different ingredients in Europe. So we'd be happy to like let you guys know, like yeah, send you guys the contact information of the suppliers in Europe, and we know one or two in United States. Um, then for other regions, like yeah, we can find out too. So please let me know like if you're interested in contact info of these suppliers. But again, like just wish that, yeah, just let's hope that like they have like some sample Kansi powders that are like small in quantity. Otherwise, like you may have to like buy like 12 kilograms of that like Kansi, and then you know because like it's just like small quantity that you just adding to I mean the noodles, right? Um, the 1%, the whole like total like solid ingredients, or like maybe like up to two the most. So yeah, and then we are cutting, and um, so each noodle strand is 2.0 millimeter in width. It's now number 16 cutter, and um, so this machine can portion the noodles automatically, and then that deter like set length. So noodle length can be adjusted to like for different serving size. So and then so like maybe longer for bigger serving size, shorter for smaller serving size. So it's very easy to do it. Yeah, and you can make them curly pretty easily, and a different curliness they have. So it's very versatile. So this is kind of noodle size, like kind of thickness. The 2.0 millimeter, and then the thickness would be like 1.7 millimeter or something. Um, so this size is pretty good for kind of miso ramen, or like maybe like some like dipping noodle, like tukime noodle too. So yeah, this noodle size is pretty good for different ramen dishes. So it's great that like we made some noodles, ramen noodles today, using Kansui, and I'm so happy that like we finally covered this topic, like did the class on Kansui. So thank you so much. Bye bye.